War. The Republic is crumbling. Under attacks by the ruthless Sith Lord, Count Dooku, there are heroes on both sides. Evil is everywhere. In a stunning move, the fiendish droid leader, General Grievous, has swept into the Republic capital and kidnapped Chancellor Palpatine, leader of the Galactic Senate. As the Separatist droid army attempts to flee the besieged capital with their valuable hostage, two Jedi Knights lead a desperate mission to rescue the captive Chancellor. Hey, we are back on another Star Wars review on the road to Rise of the Skywalkers. Brandon and Mike is here. Devin will join us soon, maybe Big Mike, but we also have a special guest this week. She's been on the show before, but she is back to review Revenge of the Sith. She is an editor at Valiant Comics. Heather Antos, how are you?
Hey, I'm good, guys. How are you doing?
We are doing well. So before we get started on this, what's been going on with you recently?
Making comics, making comics and, in preparation, for this podcast, I just rewatched all of the prequels. So I'm pumped.
Okay. So,
wow,
you've been
that's great.
Well, I'd been wanting to rewatch the movies anyway, and prep for Rise of Skywalker. I've been playing Fallen Orders. So I'm like in the Star Wars zone, and I'm on vacation this week. So, watching one of the movies a day. So today was Revenge of the Sith, and yeah, I'm pumped.
Well, thank you for that.
Did you finish Fallen Order?
No, I'm close to the end though. I'm probably two-thirds through.
I'm glad you said that because I was never mind. Now I know what I can and can't say.
Oh no, I know all the spoilers. So.
Oh.
Don't spoil it for me either.
I won't.
Okay.
I won't spoil it.
Okay.
I am halfway through, so
What did you just do?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm probably not halfway through. I'm like on that planet where you gotta it's like mountains, and it's like early. Actually, I'm probably like 20% through. So, yeah.
I like it slowly getting less and less.
I'm probably like 20% through. I have
beaten it.
You beat it, Mike. You have a problem. That's because you have a problem.
Yeah, some of us have lives.
Yeah, Mike, we have lives. So, Heather, you've been at before we get started, you've been at Valiant for almost a year now. How do you like it there?
It's great. It's super fun. We just announced, we announced in October at New York Comic Con, the new Quantum and Woody series that I'm working on, which comes out in January of 2020. So I'm very, very excited for that. And I've got a bunch more announcements that will be coming out very soon about my 2020 projects, including some horror books and Valiant's first crime noir mystery book that I put together that I'm really, really excited to get to talk more about, but I can't do that now because they're not announced yet. But things are great. Comics are, there's I feel like more freedom to explore and do different things with comics than ever before, and Valiant's super gung-ho to try it.
So I have an entire series of a Valiant book that I was dying to read, and I just moved from San Diego to Dallas, Texas, and in the path of leaving, they lost my whole collection.
No.
And it was Faith.
Oh my.
It was
the Faith series.
The Faith series, yes. So I had the whole collection. I was ready to read it because sometimes I like to read things month to month, and then other times I like to
Read
get
the
a
whole
whole bunch of them
collection.
up and just
Yeah.
read them. And so I had the whole thing ready, and I was going to read it, and then it got lost. So I think I'm just going to buy them digital and read them. But yeah, so I'm excited to read that. I heard really good things about it.
Yeah, no, that one's really good. If you're a digital person, definitely check out Valiant on Comixology. We run a lot of Comixology sales. Like right now, at the time of the recording of this podcast, we're doing a big sale on Rye books because we just launched a new Rye series. So yeah, definitely check them out.
All right, cool. So if there were some must-read books that you would recommend, because some of the people who listen to our show are into all the different companies, the big two and everyone else, and then some people only read the big two. So for someone who's not familiar with Valiant Comics and really only reads Marvel, DC, anything would you recommend for them to jump in?
Oh, well, the easiest one to jump in, I would definitely say, is the new Bloodshot series by Tim Seeley and Brett Booth. The series launched in October of 2019, so it only just got started. Should be easy to pick up the back issues that you've missed. But you can jump on board and say you're a fan before the movie hits next year. Bloodshot, starring Vin Diesel and Guy Pearce and Sam Heughan, hits theaters in February of 2020, launching the Valiant Cinematic Universe, which is super, super, super exciting. So definitely recommend checking out Bloodshot.
Excellent. Cool. So I'm definitely going to check that out. And anybody listening, definitely go in Comixology or go to your local comic book store and check out some Valiant comics. All right. So before we get into this review, Mike has informed me that this is your least favorite Star Wars film. And so after a rewatch of the first three so far, is this still your least favorite Star Wars film?
Oh my God, so much yes.
So did you watch this when it first came out, or were you someone who watched the prequels later on?
Oh no, I was a kid when the prequels came out, and I got to see every single one of the prequels films as a field trip in school as an end of the year.
Cool.
Yeah. So when I was 8 years old, went and saw The Phantom Menace, and then in middle school got to see Attack of the Clones, and then it was like end of middle school that I got to see Revenge of the Sith in theater. So it was, the end of the school year every year, and I was from a small town, so it was really easy to just, take the class to go. So no, Revenge of the Sith is the only one I saw only once in theaters, though. I did not want to go see it again, and I think I didn't see it again until college. I think my sophomore year of college, when the guy I was dating at the time, I mentioned I'd only seen it once, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, no, it's the best of the prequels," and he made me watch it again, and I hated it. And and again, I don't think I watched it again until I did the Star Wars Minute episode where I did Revenge of the Sith. So I only rewatched Revenge of the Sith to do podcasts.
So is it any better than the last times you've seen it, or is it still just
No, it's so like it's about 40 minutes longer than it should be.
Yes. All of the prequels are, though.
All of it, well, especially this one though.
Yes.
Especially this one.
All of the prequels, they are the first 2/3 of it are boring, and then it's just straight action for the last third of the act of the movie.
Well, it's and I know we're not talking about this film here, but because I just watched it, I'm gonna say, like, as a film, not talking Star Wars, but just as a film, Phantom Menace is probably the best film of the three of them, which is unfortunate because in the Star Wars saga, it is the most unnecessary.
Completely unnecessary.
It's like nothing happens in the Phantom Menace like that couldn't be summed up in 5 minutes in Attack of the Clones.
Well, this film, to me, rewatching it, got worse. I used to think what your ex-boyfriend thought was that this was the best one of the prequels, and I mean, it's hard for me to judge three not good movies to me, but this one, rewatching it now, as someone who's like a critic now who reviews movies all the time. Um, yeah, like I just got a bunch of stuff in the mail for your considerations, right, for this
Yeah.
for award season. So I'm going back and like watching all these films and these Netflix movies and these great acting movies. And I'm watching this film and I'm just like the acting is horrible
Well,
in this film.
the script is bad.
It's garbage.
The script is so like
So bad.
it is so impressive how bad this script is that it makes Natalie Portman look like a bad actress. Like,
really does.
She is such a talented actress, and this dialogue is atrocious, especially when Anakin fully turns to the dark side. Like, there's something that happens in the script that, like, it just tanks even worse once he turns to the dark side. It's so bad.
Something that I can't help but come back to every time I watch the prequels is you have Darth Vader in the later episodes is like this very formal, like, I don't know if respectful is the right word, but like the way
he's
talks,
restrained.
Yeah. And then you have like Anakin, who's this whiny, very uncomfortable, like advanced.
Yeah, Anakin is like,
the way he talks is so emotional, and it just like,
Anakin is a space incel. That's who he is. He's a space incel. He's so annoying.
He's very entitled.
Overbearing. Yeah, incredibly entitled. And then, like, at that scene, I swear, I watched this scene 3 times because it was so bad. This scene after Anakin turns and Obi-Wan walks in to talk to Padme, and he's supposed to be like distraught. Like the script, you're thinking he's supposed to be distraught, like his son or his brother. He said his brother, but like his family member just like betrayed him, and he's just supposed to be angry. And he's talking, and there's no emotion. Like there's just zero emotion. The words don't sound emotional. It doesn't sound like someone who's been heartbroken or betrayed would talk. And then Padme's just like, I can't believe it. I never noticed anything was wrong with Anakin. And I'm like, did you watch the last 2 movies?
Well, and it's really interesting because there's a scene, there's a scene in Phantom Menace where Anakin, Jake Lloyd, all cute little boy, is, he just wants to help the Jedi. He wants to help them get their ship. He's very, very selfless. He's very kind. And Shmi, his mom, is like, this is just how he is. He's always thinking of others. He's always being considerate and loving and kind. And that just goes out the window in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. Like, he's very arrogant, very entitled, very selfish. Like, none of that we saw in this little boy. So for me, I'm like, what happened in these 10 years? What happened in Jedi training? Oh, it's a religious cult. That's what happened.
That makes sense. But his transition to the dark side also doesn't make any sense. It's I think.
Oh yeah, I said the same thing.
He's more like angry and angsty in 2 than he is in 3, up until the point where he turns. But then, like, something that really bothers me is he's doing all this for Padme, right? Whatever. Like, I guess if that's the way you're going to go, then fine. And then he accidentally kills her, or the Emperor kills her. I don't know what happens there. And then
she dies of a broken heart.
I think the Emperor killed her. I think the Emperor killed her watching, which I never thought before watching it this most recent time, because I remember, like, how did he know she died?
Yeah, no, I had that thought too. I was like, maybe he just killed her. Yeah, maybe he just force squeezed her heart. Who knows?
But then, like, she's like, all right, so she's dead, and he flips out, and then I guess he's just like, all right, well, I guess this is my life now. Forget everything that I wanted you to teach me. I'm just gonna do this now. I'm just gonna be evil. I don't know. It's very odd. And then he's very, like, he was mad at Obi-Wan, like, for most of Attack of the Clones, and then in 3 they have like a good relationship for some reason. It should be reversed.
No, it should. But it's like in 3, we want to show how loving the relationship is. That way your heart is broken when you see how bad it is. Well, and another thing I thought of too, having just doing this rewatch, is when Palpatine reveals himself to Anakin as being a Sith, or when Anakin finds him out and Anakin's like, oh, you're a Sith. Anakin's like, I should kill you. I'm going to turn you in and all this stuff. And he does. And he does the right thing. And then all of a sudden, like, I'm watching this fight between Mace Windu and Palpatine, right? And Palpatine is like doing, clearly lied to Anakin this whole time, clearly manipulated him this whole time, all of this shit that Anakin was pissed off about and said he wanted to kill him for. And then Palpatine's just like, yeah, but dude, believe me. And Anakin's, all right, you got it, dude. I'm gonna be a Sith now. Let's kill Mace Windu.
It's even worse than that. It's even worse than that, because Palpatine's like, you're gonna no. Right before that, Mace Windu had Palpatine dead to rights, and Anakin's like, you can't kill him. He has to stand to trial. He said it just like that. You can't kill him. Yeah. He has to stand to trial. No emotion. And Mace Windu's like, this dude is a detriment to the entire galaxy. He's got to go. And he's like, that's not the Jedi way. He has to stand trial. And then
Count Dooku,
right, well, yeah, the Dooku.
But not
scene,
even
yeah.
that. And then Palpatine gets the upper hand and is electrocuting the hell out of Mace Windu. And he doesn't say Mace Windu has to stand the trial for betraying the Republic. He kills him, throws him out into space. And then he gets up and he's like, yes, master, you're my new master. None of that made any sense at all.
And it's like, he filled his head with like these delusions, like the Jedi are bad, they're all really bad guys. And he's like, all right, you know what, maybe you're right, like, let's do it your way. And then he's like, all right, now go kill all the younglings, kill all the kids. That's like, what we need to do.
Yeah. And he doesn't bat an eye, he doesn't question it, he doesn't, because it reminded him of the Tusken Raider children he killed. The previous film.
I don't know. It was bizarre. And then I'm assuming this movie takes either they have babies much faster in Star Wars, or it takes place over 9 months and they never mention it, because she goes from I'm pregnant to having babies in the whole movie. So I don't know how long it had been since he beheaded Count Dooku, and then I don't know.
It takes place over a year.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's just the other thing that I don't like about most of Star Wars actually is, I love Star Wars, but it's unless you watch the Clone Wars and Rebels and play the video game, nothing else makes any sense.
No,
at all.
Especially in the original movies.
It's like, so if you look at the end of 2 and 3, so I watched all the Clone Wars. Brandon hasn't seen the whole thing, but it's like, so I know what happens between the two. But if you're just looking as like a viewer, it's like, how do you go from these weird, like, it just doesn't make any sense unless you watch. But I love the Clone, but like watching these what I'm trying to say is watching these again has made me realize my favorite parts about Star Wars are everything outside of the movies.
Yep. No, I agree. 100%. It's the world, especially the prequels, right? Especially the prequels.
For sure.
Everything.
Like the game,
but even the original series, because when Marvel did the Star Wars book a few years ago, that was taking place between 4 and 5.
Yep.
A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, and it filled in so many gaps about like what happened with Vader, how he got back on Palpatine's good side, like all these different things, and it really established Vader as like this real badass in a galaxy. Because when you watch the films, you're told Darth Vader is like this really bad person.
Yeah, it's the argument, but you don't see it. Yeah, you never see it. And that's the argument that I always have with people with Boba Fett is like, oh, you're told he's a badass, but you never see it. And yeah, at least with the comics that, they made Vader the badass. I'm still waiting for someone to make Boba Fett a badass. I don't think it'll happen.
But is he Mandalorian? I've been wondering that.
No, he's not.
He doesn't count, right? Because he's a clone.
No, he's not a Mandalorian. He's and Django isn't a Mandalorian. They were Mandalorian in the EU, and then that got wiped clean. And then the prequels, basically Jango is a bounty hunter that killed a Mandalorian and wore his armor as
That's
kind
what
of
I
like
thought, because
kind of like a middle finger to the world.
That's what I thought, because if I looked it up, because I didn't know if it was in a comic book that I didn't read, but I was trying to figure it out, and it said that I could find was the Mandalorians shame him, but it doesn't say why. So I'm like, he probably murdered a bunch of people.
Yeah, so that's all it is. So really, Boba Fett is just appropriating Mandalorian culture.
Yeah, pretty much. So
I was never that like. Boba Fett has always just been like, whatever to me. I don't know if
he's a helmet.
Yeah, because you never see him do anything.
Hey, so he leans on a wall, something fierce.
Yeah. So I'm assuming the reason why people like this film so much is because of the action in the third act. I mean, I guess that's why people like this film so much.
You mean the 20-minute lightsaber scene where they climb up the hill? Scene? It's not good.
Well, it starts off okay, and then they're literally swinging across vats of lava, still hitting their lightsabers the 1 second that they cross paths. That was unnecessary.
When he climbs like that hill or ladder or whatever, I don't know why. Like, and they're still like clashing lightsabers while they're climbing up this thing. Which, whatever happened to Force Jump, whatever happened to Force Speed, which we see in Phantom Menace and never see ever again.
they do it at the very beginning and never. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and all to say, I have the high ground. It's the music.
I mean, if anything though, Star Wars has been, the prequels especially have been the most memeable franchise I think ever. I mean, a lot of good, internet jokes came from the movies.
100%.
I will say, "Hello there" is still my favorite line in the entire movie. That's my favorite part of it. I don't know why General Grievous. I don't know why he did that, because Grievous could have had him killed immediately. But, still my favorite scene.
Also,
I do like Ewan McGregor a lot. I think he's my favorite part of the prequel.
He is. It's funny. I was just listening to a podcast that was commenting on this, and for everything that people say about the prequels, how much we love to hate them, Ewan McGregor is the one thing that everyone agrees on is right. Like his casting was fantastic. His performance is fantastic. Like he's such a charismatic guy and really plays the role very, very well. I 100% agree with that. My favorite memeable moments, and actually quotable moments that my boyfriend and I shout at each other all the time, are all the terrible Anakin and Padme.
Sand? Do you talk about sand? Because that's what I would do.
No. Just I promise you. No, I promise you.
Oh. There's a scene. I think the cringe.
They're very CW.
They are.
No, they're worse though. The cringiest moment is between the two of them in this movie, and they're literally like, "Is my love not good enough for you?" And he's like, "All I have for you is love," or something. I don't know. What did you do?
You're like, "You're so beautiful because I love you," and it's like, "Oh, so love has blinded you?" Yeah. No. I love you. No, I love you because you're so beautiful.
When I watch these movies, I come back to watch ridiculous stuff. And so I'm watching this film, and two things I don't know. I don't know how my mind works, but I can't separate ridiculousness sometimes. Mm-hmm. So like they were fighting in the beginning, they're fighting Count
Dooku.
Count Dooku and
Count Dookie.
Count Dooku. And they first of all, they start off by double teaming them. And I'm like, you guys are supposed to be the good guys. Why are you 2-on-1 on the bad guy? And then you're 2-on-1 on the bad guy, and it's an even fight. He's holding his own versus both of you, like for 5 minutes, no problem. And then he drops something on Obi-Wan.
Something so heavy it should have cut him in half. By the way, did you see that?
Yeah, he drops it on Obi-Wan, and then Anakin just beats his ass in 2 minutes and kills him.
And then
Anakin's so good.
The equivalent of who would be, I guess, like the leader of the United Nations. Like the most, the leader of the whole, the most, I would say, respected, side of the galaxy, or however you want to phrase it, is literally just like, great, Good job. Murder him. Do it right now.
He didn't think anything of it
right now. And he's like, I really shouldn't. He's like, no, just do it.
But if Anakin and Obi-Wan are that good, they should have destroyed him when they were double teaming him. It should have been a wrap. You should have at least a better storytelling would have been like separating them and having him take them on one-on-one, and then Anakin like gets angry and then beats him. But that's not what happened. And then they're fighting on I always say this name wrong. What's the planet with all the volcano? Mustafar. I always say Mustafar. Mustafar.
It's okay. They say Mustafar in the movie too at one point.
And they're fighting, and not just fighting. Okay, if you want to tell me Obi-Wan and Anakin have force protection from the heat, I'm like, okay. But I'm like, do you know how hot lava is? And being that close proximity to lava, and Padme's just walking around outside, inhaling all the lava fumes and all sulfur, that heat.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing wrong with her. Like there's nothing wrong. She's just walking around there. And I'm like, this is so. And then Obi-Wan and Anakin are fighting right by the lava, and they're not even sweating. And I was just like,
well, Jedi don't sweat; they glisten.
That's a good one. So I don't know. I know I'm a nitpicky, but I watch those things. I'm just like, this is ridiculous. Like,
well, actually, I was more disappointed with I like the fight between Yoda and Palpatine.
I was gonna say that one I like.
Yeah,
I like it, but I also feel like Yoda. I don't know. I feel like I would have wanted Yoda. I guess I know why he can't win the fight. Because there's a bunch of stuff after. But I will say there's a part where the Emperor is just hanging from this thing, laughing for some odd reason, and Yoda's just like, "All right, this is where I'm done. I'm not going to take advantage of this moment. I'm going to go. I'm going to go escape now. This is my time to go." While the Emperor is in a position of vulnerability and laughing very oddly. I'm just going to leave. It'll be fun.
Also, can someone explain to me why his face turned like that? Is this
I don't know.
Because he was using his electric powers?
I mean,
yeah. It's just, that's the explanation is because they had to explain why his face looked like that in the classic trilogy. So yes, it was the strain of all of him showcasing the dark force, whatever the Sith electricity, and makes you look ugly. I don't know. Like there's no Sith that is attractive.
No, none of them. That's a great point.
Well, so something else that bothers me about the Sidious part of the Emperor is that, and I know why they can't do this because the Clone War TV show came after, but every time he uses a lightsaber in the Clone Wars, he uses two. He dual wields, and he doesn't. Mm-hmm. I would have wanted to see that, but I know why they can't do that. It was probably like an afterthought, but I don't know. And then he just for some reason never uses a lightsaber again in the original trilogy. I guess he doesn't need to because he's got Darth Vader. But
I like how they're like, Darth Vader's going to be so much more powerful than me, and Anakin's like, I'm more powerful than the senator. I mean, but then Palpatine. I'm going to destroy him, and I'm going to rule the galaxy. And then you go into the original series, and he's subservient. He's not even second in charge in the original trilogy. He's like behind Tarkin.
Yeah.
As far as who's in charge, and I'm just like,
well, we explained that in the Marvel comics. We
yes,
made that.
Yeah, in the comics it does. I mean, in the movies.
Oh no! In the movies, in the movies, none of it makes sense. Yeah, no,
Sorry.
Oh no! I was just gonna say, like, again, it's Vader is this, the coolest thing. Why Vader got to be the most badass villain that he was pop culturally again is because he looked cool. Because he looked cool and he looked scary, and we didn't have anything like that at the time. And then
James Earl Jones.
Yeah, and James Earl Jones, and then it was all the lore that got built around the films that made it as cool as it is. It's same thing, Boba Fett, just a helmet, all the lore around it that made it just as cool as it is.
I made Mike and Devin go back and read that Darth Vader series, and it just makes these movies. It just is like it could be so much more, because in that series you watched Vader, and it's just like, this is the most feared man in the galaxy. I see why everyone is scared of him.
Have you read the 2017 Darth Vader book that came out?
Yeah, I think that's the one we're talking about.
No. You're talking about the 2015 one, which is that takes place.
Oh, you're talking about the series 2 when he gets his I'm
talking about the series like that happens literally right after Revenge of the Sith. Yeah. Yes. Have you read that one?
Yes, I started reading that one.
I haven't read that one yet, but
I did start reading that one.
Yeah, so that one was actually a lot of fun to work on because that was towards my tail end in the series. But we got to explain like how he got his red lightsaber and
lightsaber back. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and kind of explain because as you mentioned, in episode 4, 5, and 6, Vader is very stoic. He's very restrained. He's very stiff. He's not this emotional, impulsive kid that Anakin is. And so we kind of see him as Vader, as this emotional, impulsive kid, and kind of learn to be more restrained in the power in that. So that series does get into that a little bit. And literally the first page of that series is like the last scene of Revenge of the Sith. So it starts before the movie ends.
So that's what I was going to ask you next. How did you like the ending of this film?
It should have, I don't know. It should have ended 40 minutes sooner. This is another one of those films like that ends 20 times. Like when I was sitting and watching it this morning, and Palpatine, it's the scene when Anakin is like, "Oh my God, you're the Sith. You're the bad guy. I should kill you." Blah blah blah. I look at it and I'm like, "Oh my God, there's over an hour left of this."
I did the same thing. I was like, "Wow." There's like and then there's like weird scenes, throwaway scenes. And if you ever watched the deleted scenes for this movie, which I did for the first time,
because the original cut was 4 hours.
Yeah. Well, there's
the original cut was 4 hours.
There's a 7-minute scene in the deleted, which I'm so glad they cut out. It's just like Padme having a bunch of senators over, just like debating the politics of Star Wars, and I'm like, okay, no one wants to see this. This is too much.
I'm surprised nobody's asking for the Lucas cut.
Yeah, right.
This film.
I will say
it was before Twitter existed, so
yeah,
that's true. My favorite time period in Star Wars is 100% the beginning of the Empire, but not the Luke stuff, like the Rebels and now the Cal, like the story for Cal in the new game. Like it's just the most interesting time period for me.
So I haven't watched Clone Wars. So am I to believe so the whole entire series of Clone Wars takes place in between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith?
Sort of. There's a movie though too. So there's like the the Clone Wars movie, which is like where you meet like Ahsoka and I think Rex for the first time. So like this is what I'm saying, they don't explain it, but every Jedi was a general, even Anakin for some reason, even though he wasn't a master, but we'll overlook that. Every Jedi had a clone commander and a unit, and then like some of them had Padawans. So it's the story of how Anakin gets Ahsoka as his Padawan and Rex, who's by far the best stormtrooper. I mean, clone trooper in he's and his unit, the 501st, I think it is. And they like never ever address that. Like they show Cody's in it. Cody is great. It's weird because he's great in the show, and then he turns, but it's not his fault. As if you watch the Clone Wars, you know what the whole deal is with Order 66. Because I remember I didn't watch the Clone Wars for a long time because I was like, I don't want to watch a show and get attached to these characters knowing that they're going to betray everybody. I like finally watched it and I was like, oh, see, that makes sense now. But they make it in 3. There's a few things that they kind of make you to believe that I don't know if they just went back on and fixed it for the Clone Wars, but they make it look like Cody is in charge of the entire clone thing, which he's just that's just Obi-Wan's clone commander, and they also make it look like the clones were always going to turn, which wasn't the case. And it's a good that show is really good, and I'm excited to see what they're gonna do with season 7 on Disney Plus. Even though I think I know how it's gonna end because there's the Ahsoka book. So that's probably how it's going to end with the Siege of Mandalore, which they reference again in Rebel. That's what I'm saying. So Star Wars is so much better after all this extended stuff. I don't mean to rant on it or spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it yet, but it's really
Clone Wars is old as hell. So
and the other thing that they don't explain is Dooku has a apprentice, Asajj, which throws off the whole Jedi Council because there's always supposed to be 2. But for this time, there's 3. And
but even that it was 3 before, because when Dooku was Sidious's apprentice, when he had Plagueis, and he had Maul as well, so it was never 2.
And that's what they want the Jedi to think, though.
Yeah,
so it's like there's all this stuff going on in the background that just throws them off of. I will say the one thing I can say is Palpatine did have a genius plan, like as a character. Not maybe it wasn't presented very well in the movies, but like that's like one of the most conniving, like well thought out plans in I think as a supervillain could ever have. Like what he did with the clones and how he totally took control and how he like the attack on his face. I think it would have been better if he just always looked like that but was wearing like makeup the whole time, and then when he showed his true face, he was like, "This is what they did to me," like turning the whole galaxy against the Jedi. And
I just want to read Palpatine's journals where he writes all these plans down.
I want to know what orders 61 to 65 were. I mean,
that's
1 to 65.
1 to 65. Oh no, for sure. Lucasfilm actually knows what some of them are. I know that.
They talk about them in the like original expanded universe.
Yeah,
they've all been retconned. So now we don't know.
So the video game takes place right after this, right?
Yeah,
it takes place 5 years.
5 years after.
5 years. Okay.
Can we hold on? Can we go back to though, and talk about? We all know Darth Vader's name is Darth Vader because that's what he's called in 4, 5, and 6. We know this. That's fine. But let's talk about the moment where Palpatine just like tells him that's his name.
And he's wearing Batman's voice changer from Batman v Superman.
So he's just like, "You're going to be my Sith apprentice now." And Anakin's, "Yes, master." And he's like, "And I'm going to call you Darth Vader." And Anakin's like, "You got it, dude. That makes sense. I'm not going to question any of this whatsoever."
He says, "Henceforth, you," but he says it like Batman for some reason.
Yeah.
Like, why does he talk like that? I'm very confused.
Well, it's the Force lightning and the Sithness. Well, we see when the Sith and the dark side takes over him, his voice starts to go like this for no reason.
But this film was so heavy-handed as well. Why was Palpatine and Anakin wearing all black the entire film?
Well, it's foreshadowing.
It's so overbearing.
Why does Palpatine walk like a T-Rex when he's in his Emperor cloak, but normally when he's like,
does he?
He like even if you've played Star Wars Battlefront 2 and you're the Emperor, like you know how he walks, like he's like skipping in his robe, but his arms are like up on his chest, and he's like, like why does he do that? It's just you look like an evil person. If I saw that,
that's why he's evil.
He's doing the creep.
That's exactly what it's so bizarre. Like, why are you walking like, I don't know. It's just very odd choices to make for.
Let's be honest. George Lucas his strength was never subtlety.
No, it's not. We've talked about that in the first two. And his strength has never been storytelling. No. George Lucas is a creator.
He's an idea guy.
Yeah, an idea guy. Yeah, but I remember when the new series came out, and people were like, "We need more George Lucas involved in this."
Well, when the prequels came out, they hated George Lucas.
So. And I'm like,
yeah,
that's what I said. I'm like, y'all
literally the
hated
people
George.
Versus, yeah.
Y'all hated him. Now you want him back? I'm like, I'm good. I'm good on that one. I thank him for creating this, but I'm good.
Well, it's the thing that I think people forget, and I think a lot of fans forgot this when the prequels came out, especially the fans who grew up with them, is Star Wars is for kids. And
thank you so much for saying that. Go ahead.
No, I mean, and it's even with the new trilogy that's out right now and the new films and everything, like it's for kids, and that doesn't mean that us as adults can't like them and enjoy them too. But the messages that that are being told are meant for kids, and the characters are meant for kids. And like, why do we have Ewoks? Why do we have Porgs? Why do we have these, these characters? It's for kids. And for me as a kid, when I saw Phantom Menace and when I saw Attack of the Clones, like, yes, Attack of the Clones is the worst film of the three, in my opinion, hands down. It's terrible. But because I was like 11 when I saw it, I loved it. I thought it was fantastic and so much fun. And so I still have that nostalgia for it. And then me as a creator and as a film person, I watch it and I just like cry. But I think that's why when I was 13 and Revenge of the Sith came out and I watched that, like I was, I don't know, more adult in quotes, and I was over it, and the kid side of me didn't like it anymore. But I think a lot of kids, and it's a lot of kids, especially a lot of like, 12, 13-year-old boys, when Revenge of the Sith came out, oh my God, it's so badass. It's so emo. I totally get it. No one gets me too. I'm special. I wish I could just kill all my friends too and show them I'm more powerful. Like, I get it. I 100% get it. And why people would, think it's good solely because they could relate to it.
I've had that rant on this show, Mike can tell you, at least 10 times about these films are made for kids. I had it on when we did The Last Jedi. I had it on numerous comic book movies, because it goes the same thing with these comic book movies, especially in the DC movies. So many of the dude bros online are like, I want my movies dark and I need them grimy and rated R. And I'm like, you realize like these characters are not designed to be in rated R films. That doesn't mean you can't make a good rated R film, but they're not designed to be rated R films. And somebody was like, well, yeah, but Deadpool has to be. And I said, I really enjoyed the Deadpool movies, but I've been reading Deadpool for 15 years, and not a single, very few of those comic books are rated mature.
Oh,
so,
absolutely, yeah.
Almost the entire time of his comic book life, he was written in a way that kids could read it. And so you can't tell me that you couldn't make a good Deadpool movie that was PG-13. You could. I'm okay with the rated R movie, but I'm just saying these films don't have to be rated R. They don't have to be dark and all adult oriented, because that's not who they're for. And especially with the new trilogy, it was completely designed to be a Star Wars for a new generation.
Absolutely.
People forget Star Wars came out in 1978, right?
77.
1977. That is an entire generation ago.
Yeah.
And then the prequels came out in 1999. Now that's an entire generation ago.
Yep.
That's 20 years ago. So when they did these films, it was to get this generation of kids to love Star Wars the same way the kids did in 1999, the same way the kids did in 1977.
Oh, 100%. And it's it's an argument I have like with my friends, with my boyfriend, like all the time, like because they'll do that. Well, no one likes the characters of the new trilogy like they like Han, Luke, and Leia. And I was like, that's not true at all. Like kids go nuts for Ahsoka. Kids go nuts for Rey. And
rational adults as well.
What? Well, yeah, that too. But like, and it's Han, Luke, and Leia aren't the shit anymore. They're the shit to us because they're who we grew up on, and of course we're gonna relate to them more because it's our generation. But like there is nothing more endearing to me than watching little kids like watch the new Star Wars and like go head over heels for Rey, for Poe, for Finn, for Rose. It's great. It's so
me personally, I definitely more excited for those. And then I go back and I watch and I go, it's one of those things with a lot of things where I go back and watch those films and I go, I'm okay with these films because when they came out and what they are. I get angry. And I had a big rant on the Last Jedi review when I go online and I read about how much people talk about how bad these new films are. And I'm just like, did you watch the original trilogy as an adult?
Oh my God, yeah.
People were, my biggest thing was everyone was like, we didn't get to see Snoke's backstory. And I'm like, no, You didn't see the Emperor. We got a whole trilogy for the Emperor before we actually. No one. He was.
We
just
didn't.
there.
We didn't
What
get Vader's backstory. We didn't get the Emperor's backstory. They just said they're a bad guy.
They're just there. Well, who cares? And people
They
get so
just
triggered.
ignored Luke and Leia having a relationship.
Yep.
Just completely ignored it.
Oh, Devin's back. Hi, Devin. People get so triggered when you tell them that something that they used to like or that they still like isn't for them anymore. And it's like, just because it's not for you, you can still enjoy it. You just can't be pissed about it because you're a grown adult.
Oh yeah, well, and it's like there's plenty of stuff that like I love that I know is not good. And I will be the first to admit like it's not high art. And that's the other thing is like people want to regard Star Wars as like high art. It's not high art. It's a story that we've seen done a million times. It was just Star Wars is Star Wars because it was the first of its kind that we've ever seen, and it was the first film to have merchandise. Like it's the first franchise. It's the first of a lot of things, and it totally revolutionized, practical effects and merchandising and how Hollywood works in general. And that's amazing. It's just not high art, and it's for kids.
I'm in a video game group chat for like Madden. And I was in this chat, and I'm trying not to be snooty movie critic, but they're talking about like movies and TV shows, and I forget what TV show it was, but it was some TV show that I know is not very good. And I go and they're talking about how can you say that? And I love this show, and I say this all the time, and I had to explain to them, and I said, just because you like something or you love something doesn't mean it's good.
Yeah,
and that's okay. You can like stuff that's not good, but and when it comes to TV and film, people assume that everything in television and film is subjective, meaning it's either good or it's not good based on how much you like it. And I'm just like, no, there are tenets to movies and television shows that are objectively good. There are things that can be quantifiably good and things that can be quantifiably bad. That doesn't necessarily correlate to you liking it or not. More often than not, it may, but not always. And so there are television shows or movies that are very popular that aren't actually good or high art in that sense. And I think people get attached to things that they like or they enjoy and don't want to go away from that. Not to mention that the new series is far more diverse when it comes to race and gender, and that a lot of people off as well.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a thing like when you get into personal taste, right? Because that's the thing is everyone thinks that their personal taste is a reflection of how good or bad they are as a person. So if you say my favorite movie is a bad movie, then you're saying I'm a bad person. That's how a lot of people I think take artistic criticism, which isn't true, and it should never be, an attack on someone's personal taste shouldn't be an attack on who they are as a person. But it's fascinating to me, like if you just simplify it as like, oh well, my favorite color is pink. No one has it like, even if someone was just like, oh well, pink is terrible. No one has a problem with that, right? Like we can have this conversation as adults with colors, or and that's fine. Or whether you prefer chocolate or vanilla, and that's fine, and no one takes it personally. But God forbid you bring a pop culture character into that conversation.
Batman v Superman is a fantastic film, for example, is something that I like to use.
All right, well I'm getting off of this.
Because I was like, what?
Thank you. Don't know what he's talking about.
I just wanted to trigger the other two.
Please don't bring that into this
podcast. I think we're at my time. It's been great, guys.
We have a reputation here. Okay, don't ruin this, Mike. Devin, you just joined us towards the tail end of this show, but I'll let you get a few minutes to talk about your thoughts of this film.
I literally don't think I can like Darth Vader as a person or a character anymore because of just seeing how he was born. Like, Anakin is the worst motherfucker there could be. And like, oh my God. Even when Padme told him she was pregnant, his level of toxic masculinity and aggressiveness and making me uncomfortable oozed off this. I was like, this is terrible. And she felt it too. I don't want to tell him I'm pregnant because I don't think he's gonna handle it well.
Yeah, she was like, we'll figure it out. We've got options. We can do this. It'll be fine. Like,
yeah, it was.
They also never revisited that. He was uncomfortable, clearly, and then they were like, they never. That was it. That's an unused, plot.
I'm sure that was in the other 4 hours of film that was cut.
Oh, God. Heather,
What's Obi-Wan gonna think when I make him my godfather, the Godfather? Will he approve?
Yeah, Hayden Christensen is way too good at that. It makes me start questioning how he is. No, it makes me start to question if he's like that in real life. It's like I love Michael Rooker. Like, he's one of my favorite actors. I love him. He's a good dude. But he's so good at playing racist on TV, on movies, that I'm just like, why are you so good at this? Like, why are you so good at this? This is uncomfortable that you're so good at this. But yeah, it was similar to that. What were you about to ask Heather, Devin?
How did she feel about the second movie being the Sandals retreat at in Naboo, and then this one just leaving Naboo, but still we're going back to Naboo to have these kids at Sandals, and like them like acting like this is a whole romance, but it really isn't.
Oh, well, it's just another episode of, like, what is it, Desperate Housewives? It's just that. It's just, it's like the Housewives of Naboo.
I mean, this
it's
isn't
just
in this movie.
this is just a bad reality television show in the Galactic Republic.
He literally made her like she said in Attack of the Clones, you make me uncomfortable. And then like 10 minutes after that, they were in love. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, that was so weird.
That's what happens. That's how you get a girl, right? You're persistent, and then you wear her down.
Only after you tell her that you've had dreams about her every night for 10 years will she fall in love with you.
That's the Stephen Urkel way,
It's such a weird thing to look back in 2019 eyes. And I know that sometimes when I watch old films, but it's just like, how was that ever seen as...
This was creepy then. No. This was creepy then.
I feel like if someone just came to me and was like, hey, you're going to play Anakin Skywalker, I'm like, all right, great, let's do it. And then they give me the script, all right, and I'm like, I don't think that I should say this because I don't like, I mean, I don't know. That's just, it doesn't
but
sound
correct me
right.
if I'm wrong. I feel like they were going for Anakin being the protagonist in these films.
That's what I thought.
To the end. Like, it didn't come off that way, but I feel like it was written for us to believe that he's the protagonist. And it's supposed to be some tragic story of how this good person turns bad.
Oh yeah, no, I think you're supposed to empathize with him. Like, I think you're supposed to be like, oh no, I get it. Like, it's done very poorly, but
well, that's the same people. I mean, that's like saying people should like the new Joker movie because you should sympathize with them.
But
like,
again,
I don't know what they're going for. Like,
yeah, but those people.
Well,
yeah, those people are there. But
no, that is what they're going for.
But that's exactly what they were going for. Like we said that Mike, you missed a review, but that's exactly what we said in our review. Is that
no, they were exactly going for it.
Yes.
No, I can get why someone would do this. Yeah, no, I get it now.
Right. Part of the reason why that movie was so bad is because you don't make the Joker a sympathetic character. And the Joker in general, you should never make a sympathetic character, but especially not that dude. There was nothing sympathetic about that dude. But you watch that film and at the end, you're supposed to be like, he raged against the machine. He's the guy you want to get behind. And I'm just like, exactly. This is not a good look.
Yeah, he wants to do all of the origin stories for DC now, unrelated, but
yeah, I saw that.
My favorite death was Count Dooku with the lightsaber because I love that. And I always get mad how Count Dooku uses the Force to fight, and Anakin and Obi never do that shit. It makes me so fucking angry.
Oh, until Anakin becomes Darth Vader, then he uses the Force.
So is it only a Sith thing? That shit makes me so, oh my God. You could be so much better if you just use the Force to help you do what you're trying to achieve in the scene.
I have a question.
You mean like Qui-Gon did all the time?
Yes. Yoda's the only one who's done it so far, unless you're in like the shows. But I have a question for Heather. Usually they're asking me the questions because I've seen all the shows, but so if I have a question, I have to look it up. But since you're here, I can ask you. Someone told me this once, and I forget the explanation. Why don't Jedi and Sith just turn off each other's lightsabers with the Force? I know there's a reason in Star Wars.
Because you
I just
can't.
don't remember what it is. You can't do it?
The Kyber crystal is linked to the Jedi.
Okay, that's makes
Woo!
sense.
That shit was fire. That was a good.
See, there we go.
Now I get to ask questions because I'm the resident nerd, but now I have some backup. So thank you, because I was wondering that in this movie. I'm like, that is a good point.
You were wondering what?
Why they don't turn?
Oh.
It's kind of a weird overlooked point where originally I was like, well, that would be a really boring movie, but there is an answer for it. I wanted to know why they don't just turn off.
So I have another question for the nerds on the panel. So did Leia ever know who Padme was? Like, ever see pictures of her or anything like that in any of the continuity?
In the comics, yeah, we got into that.
Okay, because what I was confused about was that she had the Leia hairstyle.
Oh my God, I loved that so much. When the first time you see Jimmy Smith, the first time you see Bail Organa, there's Padme in the background with the cinnamon buns, and I was like, wow, look at that foreshadowing right there.
And I said, how did Leia know to do her hair like that? Like, that's very interesting. Yep. So you wouldn't know that from the movies, but of course they filled in the gaps in other places. So that was interesting. And then also, when did C-3PO get painted gold?
Oh, because
I remember in Attack of the Clones, he was like
silverish, yeah.
Silverish.
Something.
Yeah, well, it's because they needed a new toy.
That's why his arm was red.
That's why his arm was red. That's why it's like, yeah, they needed a new toy. They needed it to be different than any other C-3PO. That's why every single you get a different Millennium Falcon. It's so, they can have a new toy. That's why you got all these new different troopers and ships every single movie, but you don't ever see them ever again, depending on how the timeline is. It's so they can have a new toy.
You know what I never understood with C-3PO is you're led to believe that Anakin built him from scratch, but then in the Clone Wars and I think in other, even maybe in some, I think
there's just so many other protocol droids. Yeah,
they They look exactly the same. So did he buy a kit or did he inspire a big company to we should make these? Let's bust these out.
I think he just took junkyard parts. I believe that he did actually build him. I built my computer, but there's also a map for that.
Right.
Also, speaking of the droids, C-3PO was just screaming this. I mean, not C-3PO. R2-D2 was just screaming this entire film.
The whole time.
But he still does work, though. At the beginning of the movie, when Obi-Wan is unnecessarily yelling at him.
I was just like, yo, why is Obi-Wan trying to get everybody killed?
It's dude, give him 10 seconds. He was literally like, R2, are you there? R2, hey, R2, are you there? R2, and it's you give him 5 seconds.
Yeah, but R2, it's my coffee's cold. R2.
And then R2 did work. He took down 2 super battle droids, and then I think he took down no, they took down the regular.
He lit that bitch on fire too. That shit was everything.
Oh yeah,
R2 is the best character in all of Star Wars. He's the best.
You know what though? He's the only one who didn't have his mind wiped.
Yeah.
At the end of the movie, and so he's just going through all these movies with all this knowledge. He's
also the most consistent character throughout all the films.
But you don't know, he could have said shit a bunch, and people are just like, hey, "What do you know? You're just a droid."
He's the smartest droid too. Yeah, R2 is dope as hell. All right, so there's one thing I wanted to ask Heather after we talked about this film, but does anybody have? Well, we'll go around. So let's give your final thoughts about Revenge of the Sith, and then give it a score on 1 to 10. We'll start with you, Heather.
Well, the real revenge was the studios making us watch this film.
Okay.
And yeah, that's all I have to say with that.
So you're giving it a 1.
That's sure.
Mike, what about you?
I similar to what she said earlier. My fondest memories of this original trilogy were all the action scenes, and then watching it full on start to finish. It's just this is so awful. It's such a poor setup for a great character later. So I mean that's what I'll say about that. I'd probably give it a 3 or 4. I feel like I want to put it above Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, but I don't really know why.
You have to.
But
Devin, what about you?
I'm gonna give it a solid 3.5. I mean, I like fucking Dooku dying. I like Dooku. I got R2 doing more stuff. No Jar Jar for real. So did the hatred keep him from like dying on the fucking lava pit? Like
probably because that's what Darth Maul did when he got cut in half. So I mean, that's just what I'm gonna go with.
because even the first time I saw it, I was like, this is bullshit. Like he's supposed to be fried like shit, but he just keeps coming back.
Well,
he
and
keeps clawing at lava. He's pulling up on lava and shit, and I'm just like, what?
Maul survived for 10 years on just hatred, insane on a trash planet. So I mean, anything's possible.
I guess.
So I think I gave the other